question. What are we teaching our kids when it comes to fighting?
I teach my kids, don't start it, but finish it. Somebody puts their hands on them, you get on them, you don't get off of them until somebody gets you off of them. Have a good day.
Hey guys, Justin Rose with Bushido Mixed Martial Arts here again. You see the little clip that I just posted. I want to talk to you about that because that's been brought up to me a lot. What is acceptable and what do I teach my kids for self-defense? So I'm going to cover it in kind of two parts real quickly. One is what is acceptable to me, and then two, what is acceptable to the society and the rules. Okay, you have to understand that. Me as a parent, I taught my kids the same thing. If you get in a fight, if someone forces you into a fight and you have to use your skills, use them to the fullest extent, bar injuring somebody. Like, meaning kids can't go out there and just break arms. They can't do that. They can't just, there's so much of that video I just posted of people like, I just tell my kids break their arms. I tell my kids this and that. You can't do that. I can't do that as an adult. If you get into a situation that's a self-defense situation, you are allowed to meet equal or lesser force. You are not allowed to be excessive with your force. So covering it from a self-defense point of view as a dad, I would tell my kids, you make sure that when you get in that fight, everybody in that chow hall, the cafeteria, everybody in the locker room, everybody in the football field knows you won that fight. I want you to make so sure that everyone knows you won that fight, that kid's own mama and daddy would tell them they got their ass whooped. That deals with the problem. You don't ever have to deal with it anymore. The kids won't have any problems. If you leave it close, then all that kid's friends are going to say they won. Your friends are going to say you won. And you're going to have the same problems that continue. So I do teach my kids to finish the fight. We do have to stay in the parameters of the law, though. So let me explain. When I teach them how to finish their fights. When we do self-defense and you see my bully beatdowns, that's why we choke. That's why my kids are only allowed to choke. There are two exclusions to that rule where they're allowed to open palm strike to get the kid to turn over to where he can give up the choke. And then there are arm bars in excessive situations where if I put a kid that's quite a bit higher than the other kid in strength or level, and he's struggling, he's doing everything right, but for some reason just cannot finish this kid. He's too strong, or this kid's breaking the rules, he's counter grappling, really putting a hammer on my kid. So when I grant permission, they can do arm bars. But until then, we don't want to do it. That keeps your kid from getting in trouble. If that bully has been picking on your kid for 3 weeks, and you give your kid the permission to go fight him, and your kid breaks that bully's arm, you're susceptible to a lawsuit. That kid's parents can then turn around and sue you for $35,000, $40,000 in damages for breaking their little bully's arm. That is a fact. That is the society we live in. And if your kids are up there closer to the 16 and 17-year-old range where they do MMA as adults, it can go on their record. They'll have a permanent mark on their record for an assault. So my rules are defend yourself. I teach them to defend themselves. They're allowed to defend themselves. But we want to try to meet it with equal or lesser force, just like in the real world. The parents have the say on when, where, what, and how. I tell my kids, I'm not the ones that tell you when to fight. I teach you the skills to fight. Parents tell you when you can and can't fight. But if you're one of these parents that says, if they start it, you finish them, you do this, you do that, just get ready for the legal ramifications. And I got receipts. I can back it up. My kids got tickets, had to do community service. There's been a lot of ramifications. I've had a kid that had to go to court. He was in trouble for fighting a kid that stabbed him in the chest with a pencil. So there's consequences to our actions. The last thing I want to say on that is never do I want to hear one of my kids walk in my door on Monday and I go, hey, man, what happened to you, buddy? He goes, oh, he got beat up. Well, he got beat up. He trained self-defense. He does bully. Well, he was scared that if he used his skills, he would get in trouble. And I can't tell you how many times I get those comments. It's not a lot, but I get the comments of, martial arts isn't about fighting. You should never use your martial arts for... What is it for? It's self-defense. Self-defense implies defending oneself. So if you put your hands on me, I will defend myself. If you want to learn about turning the cheek, go to church. But if you put your hands on me, I'm going to defend myself. That's why I train what I train. That's why I teach what I teach. This whole baloney BS about you don't use martial arts for fighting. Martial arts isn't Dungeons and Dragons and Xbox. It's self-defense. It implies that if you try to harm me, not only will I stop you, I will most likely harm you back. So let's get that straight. But kids cannot go out here and finish the fight and pound on them until somebody tells them to get off. That's called assault, and you can get in trouble for that. And if you don't believe me, check your local laws. Like I said, I can bring receipts. I have tickets from my children when they were younger. Had to do the whole legal system over this stuff. So make sure you know your laws. Make sure you know your rules. Kids should know their rules. But in my house, in my school, kids are allowed to defend themselves 100%. But we try to finish by a choke. I'd rather a kid choke a kid out, gently lay him on the ground, be done with the fight, than to break his arm. Because breaking his arm is going to end in a lawsuit. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.